Hi, I'm Kylie McDonough-Scott.
And I'm Rebecca Toller-Stevenson.
We're two friends
and realtors in Kingston, Jamaica.
Join us on the Island Realtors podcast as we talk about all things real estate in our island paradise.
Welcome to today's episode of the Island Realtors podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Toller-Stevenson.
And I'm Kylie McDonough-Scott.
And today is episode number 16 of our podcast. We can't believe it. We've made it thus far. And we
took a little break.
Yes, we took a little break. We did. But we have decided that we want you to see us and not just hear us. So we are now on YouTube. So thank you.
Hi, YouTube.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in.
This is exciting.
Click, subscribe, download, all that good stuff. So on today's show, we wanted to talk about buying land and specifically buying residential land to build a home. Now, we get a lot of calls all the time from prospective buyers who say that they want a parcel of land or residential lot here or there to build a house. But is this process a simple one or a complicated one? How do you know if this is the right route for you? Today on the show, we would like to welcome a very special guest, Mr. David Goldson. This man to my right, 6 feet to my right, precisely.
We measured, yes.
We measured, we're precise. He's a partner at Lyew Chin Engineering Company Limited. And David is a registered professional engineer with over 30 years experience in civil and structural engineering. He's experienced in the design of reinforced concrete, reinforced masonry, structural steelwork, and timber structures. Knowledgeable of construction practices and methodology, having worked as a general contractor and constructed numerous buildings, including not one, but 2 7-story commercial buildings before becoming a consultant. I want to add that we contacted 2 other engineers here on the island and were told to call you. They daren't come on the show. They were like, no. You have to have David Goldson. So we like to bring our listeners and viewers the best. So here you are. Welcome, David.
Thank you for having me.
And David is no stranger to us because we actually had him in Kuya. Remember that?
Yeah. I remember that well. I got a lot of calls about that.
And then you told me you were shy and you didn't want to be in the magazine and all this stuff, and I had to beg you, and it all worked out perfectly. And here you are now on YouTube.
You have beat me over the head a second time, but that's okay.
Well, I'm known for that. We also have another guest who our listeners may remember, and those of you who are on Instagram and stuff, you definitely know Natalie Barakat-Johnson. She is also a colleague of ours at Coldwell Banker. She has also been on our show before. And I don't even remember, what episode were you on?
I'm going to guess that it was episode number 8 because I like the number 8.
Yes.
I truthfully don't remember, but it was a great program, and I'm happy to be back.
Well, we love to have you on because you're always so funny. I always call Natalie once a week, and I think I talk to her on the phone for like an hour, and I just get lots of jokes. You're always nice and light.
Try to do that. Thank you.
So anyways, we brought Natalie on the show because Natalie is actually building a house herself.
Brave woman.
Right now.
Yes. And I remember during the beginning of this COVID virus in like April, when we all kind of just didn't know what to do with ourselves and stuff, and the country was semi-lockdown, and again I would have one of my hour-long chats with Natalie. She'd be like, I'm on my way to my land. I'm gonna go clear my land. I said, what do you mean you're gonna go clear your land? Don't you pay somebody to clear your land? She's like, no, I'm out there. This is my exercise. So she went out there with a cutlass, and she and her husband and her children. I think, did your children go?
They came a couple times, but
and then they wised up, right?
Right, they did.
But she was doing it partially for exercise, partially to get to really know her piece of land, and it was just an experience, and it's just going to be a part of the story that you tell one day when the house is actually complete.
Absolutely.
You're here to tell us.
Yes, hopefully.
So what kind of piece of land did you buy? How big is it? And Tell us a little about it.
I purchased that land about 11 years ago, my husband and I believe David also purchased at the same time.
That's right.
Oh, you guys have in the same place?
We were almost. I left.
Oh, I didn't even know that. You didn't even mention that.
Well,
Yes.
we're here on the show.
Yes.
David was supposed to be my neighbor, but he sold out his piece and bought something else because I think we were moving too slowly
Yes.
for
yes.
his liking. And truthfully, it was slow because that's 11 years ago.
I was
That's
about
right.
to say
I
that.
didn't realize it was that
It's a
long.
long time.
So my husband and I came upon this land because I'm in the business and on the ground. And so we got a great deal. So we purchased about 2.2 acres, very prime land, albeit a bit steep. And but it was 11 years ago, and it's 6 titles. So we have 6 lots, and we're actually building on 1 lot. So we broke ground 4 months ago, and my stomach turned. I have to admit that. I think I'm a tough personality, but it did kind of have me taking some Nexium. And so, that's it.
Can you tell our younger viewers what Nexium is?
It is for people with stomach
Issues.
whose nerves are sensitively attached to their stomach. Let's just put it that way. I am possibly a taker of Nexium from time to time. Just saying.
So Nats, you've been out there, you have been digging through your land, and where have you reached in the process so far?
So we've pretty much cleared the 2.2 acres and planted a couple trees, put in some grass on the pieces that we are not building on, and we broke ground on the piece that we are building on, which is at the highest point, and that was like 4 months ago. So we're in the process of putting in the foundations. We built on quite a steep slope. And, with a view, people who love a view, there comes a major expense called making sure you have the proper foundation.
Absolutely.
And getting the right advice from persons like engineers like David.
Which then leads me to my question, because Rebecca and I, we get a lot of calls, and Natalie too, of course. Actually, you and I just sold a piece of land together.
We did. There you go.
And I find in Kingston, it's not that easy to find land. In the country, it's easier, and depending where you go and stuff like that. And, a lot of people don't know what to look for when buying land. And of course, everybody wants a flat piece of land.
But they want
With a view.
With a view, too.
Right.
So, David, we compiled a checklist of what a buyer should take into consideration when shopping for land. Help us to expand on this. I will throw the things out and you just talk about it. Terrain.
All right. Well, it would be nice if, as you said before, that we had a flat piece of land, gently sloping, so you have no drainage issues, and it's a compact sandy soil, so you have no foundation issues. Unfortunately, Ligony Plains is no longer, there's no more land in Ligony, and so we have to go on the hills for this.
Right.
And you're getting the sloping lands, as Natalie said. You could actually do this part. You're
Well,
an expert. No.
I kind of am.
Yes.
23 board piles.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
A combination of raft foundation.
There you go. So you're throwing out these terminologies, but essentially, when it's sloping, when you have a sloping land, a couple of things you need to look at. And for the person who is not in the business, it may be difficult, but this is where you need to get the advice of a qualified engineer in that field, either a structural engineer or a geotechnical engineer who knows the area. If you're going to be getting into clays, like some parts of Jacksonville, then as Natalie mentioned, she had to use what we call board piles. That's going to add to your foundation cost. I don't think it's going to double it, but it will add to it, and everything kind of adds up.
And what about if it's rocky, like Stony Hill?
Right. And so if it is rocky, there are different grades rock, whether it's what we call a soft rock, something that you could just have a jackhammer go through, spend a couple of weeks or months digging it out. That's possible. Then you won't have any foundation issues, but then you may have drainage issues. because you can't get
Okay.
in anything.
No
Your sewage
percolation.
won't
Right.
percolate.
Because that's what we were going to, drainage and
Drainage,
sewage.
drainage
Right.
and sewage are my next.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
questions.
Well, for drainage and for drainage, when we talk about drainage, I'm gonna break it down. And drainage will be stormwater. How do you deal with the stormwater? When you look at on your site, the first thing you need to look at is your site draining an
Properly.
area, and draining an area off site. Is there areas that drain through your property?
Okay.
Because by law you can't block it off. You can't see a gully coming through and decide you're going to block it off and not
Yeah,
have
because
the
that
water
will
coming through.
back up the gully,
Yeah,
yeah,
you
for
will
someone
have-
else on the other
that's
side.
it. You
In
Okay.
have-
fact, all of our titles speak to that.
That's
No drain water going off into somebody else's lot.
Right, right. Well, there's a common misconception where people say that the law says that you can't run any water from your property onto your neighbor's property. That's not quite what the law said, what the law intended.
Okay.
If your land naturally slopes through somebody's property, then there is what we call the pre-development flow. If you never did anything to the land, what was the amount of water that was running off? That flow needs to be maintained, not direct it and collect it and direct it through the property, but you are supposed to maintain that amount of flow. What you can't put through the property is all your post-development flows, the water that comes off your roof, any of the hardscapes.
Okay.
So that needs to be maintained on your property,
Okay.
and you control that. For sewage, if you're not lucky enough to be near somewhere where you have a public sewer main,
Right.
then you need to do your own on-site sewage.
Which would be what they call a septic or a soakaway.
Well, that's a combination.
Yes.
A combination of things. Now, the level of treatment is dependent on where you are. If you're in urban areas, in Kingston, then you have to have what is called a tertiary level treatment, which is the septic tank, the reed bed.
It sounds very expensive.
It's more unsightly than expensive.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So if you're in urban areas, the level of treatment is more than if you're in the country
Right,
and in suburban areas.
And what do you do if you're in the country?
Dig a hole.
They will, well, a little more than digging a hole, but
Dig
they-
a hole.
Guys, do not dig a hole.
Yes, don't listen to this.
She doesn't know what she's talking about.
Don't listen
Listen
to that
to him.
engineer.
Just
Yeah.
playing. I'm just playing.
But yes, it eventually goes into a hole that you would dig. Hopefully,
go.
that you're assuming you
She's
have
not
drainage.
wrong.
But the level of treatment is not as much as if you're in urban areas.
Okay.
Oh.
And then, of course, water and electricity. I mean, a lot of times that we find this in the country too. You find a nice piece of land, but then there is no
The nearest.
water
Right.
Right.
running through it. I know that in Treasure Beach, for example, there's a part of Treasure Beach that's a little further out called Billy's Bay. Beautiful. Are you familiar with
Beautiful.
Billy's Bay?
Yes, yes.
But beautiful pieces of land, but no water. And actually, I just sold a house there the beginning of this year. And I found that out as I, listed the house. I realized they don't actually have water access, so they had to get they have a
Truck, a
catchment,
big-
and then they truck in water like once
Unbelievable.
every so often. But should that turn off people from buying the land?
No, it shouldn't. For those people who yes, especially from Mandeville, where my in-laws are from, they're accustomed to catching water from the roof, and it goes into a cistern.
Well, it rains
and
all the
that's-
time
and that's
there.
how it is. The only thing I would say about catching rainwater, which is standard, is one, add a filtration system or
Right.
treatment system. They're pretty cheap. You can get them, put them inline, and they'll treat the water for potable uses.
And when you say inline, you don't have to do anything once you install this thing?
Maintain it,
Okay.
add change filters and stuff like that. And the other thing is, don't use cedar shingle roofs. Don't use a shingle roof or anything that would be treated for termites, because you
Right.
don't obviously want
because
to be
the
drinking
chemicals
that
will.
because of the chemicals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Right,
guys.
right. So it's not a showstopper not having water.
Yes.
But obviously not having electricity would be a stopper. But
So hold on, having no electricity is a stopper?
well, then
I
you'd
mean,
have to
unless you want to live in
off
a,
grid, right? If we want to do off grid and be totally, no water from the city, no electricity from the city, sure, that can be done.
Okay.
As long as you know your usage and you can match your demand
What
with your usage.
what about if there's no electricity on the land, but there is electricity like relatively close by, like a mile?
Right.
Can you pull, what's that
Sure,
process like of pulling
it's-
light up to
it's-
your land?
So I'm not an electrical engineer, but yes, JPS will provide the electricity at your cost. So you need to pay for them to put in the poles
Wow.
and carry the electricity.
Okay, so it can be
Oh,
costly.
It
so
can get
it
costly.
depends how amazing the land is.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
It
right.
might be worth
Absolutely.
it.
If
It might
it's
be worth
some
it to do
hidden
that.
beachfront something somewhere, maybe it's worth doing. Yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then what about road access?
Again, this is one of those things. What do you require for your road
Right.
access? Do you require a paved road with asphalt, or is a kind of country road type thing which is just mild? Is that adequate? I will say that if you have bought a land that is in an approved subdivision, that all these things would have been there, should have
Yes,
been there
of
for you
course.
already. So
Should,
this is
yeah.
should. So this is for that spot, as you say, that's in the beautiful part. You get in the view, everything,
Hidden gem.
and you're gonna say, well, I'll not have a paved road. I'll just take the country road. That's fine for me.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask about zoning. Talk to us about zoning.
Right. So zoning is controlled by the parish council, wherever it is that you are, and they have zoned areas that are zoned residential, zoned commercial, and zoned residential and commercial. Unfortunately, especially in Kingston, you can drive around and see that there are areas that are zoned residential that creeping into there. We have the garages
Yeah.
and the
Starting,
things
yeah.
like that.
Plenty areas like that.
Right. So if you find your spot, that you really like, and you see that it is creeping, being commercial, zoning, part commercial and residential, I would contact the parish council and find out what is this area zoned for.
Okay, good.
And then if you want to take on the fight to try and maintain it like that, sure, go ahead.
What about, this is another one that I got a lot. I had a big development for sale in Kingston here, and a lot of people wanted to know about piling and backfilling. Is that something that we do a lot in Jamaica?
Yes.
What is piling
Yeah,
and backfilling?
actually,
Let's start there.
yeah.
Right. Well, Natalie mentioned it earlier. You usually, so a regular foundation would be what we call just a strip foundation or a pad foundation. If you have the soil doesn't have the...
But hold on, when you say foundation, you mean, because we just need to lay it out to
Okay.
people. The foundation is the thing that you put the house on, right?
So the foundation is what goes in first, and then the structure goes on top
top
of
of
it.
And that's made out of concrete, right?
It usually is concrete. That's
Okay.
what we do a lot of, mostly concrete here in Jamaica.
Okay.
Yes. Then you do have situations where if what we call the bearing capacity is not there, where the soil is not strong enough
To hold a house.
to hold the house, then we need to carry the load from the house down
into the earth,
to
yeah.
areas to the strata that is strong enough to hold the house. That's why you need a pile.
Okay.
So
Well,
right.
sticks. Sticks,
well,
not sticks.
they look like sticks, yes.
but you know what I mean.
Right.
Metal poles.
Right. They can be metal, or usually for houses they'll be concrete.
Okay.
So that's when you
And
would
then the
use piles.
backfilling is when you...
The backfilling is when you have a sloping piece of land and you want it flat or
yeah.
close to flat. Then we're going to put up a retaining wall and then get earth
And fill it in.
and then you'll have your wonderful lawn to look out on your view.
A question about piling, because I ran into this a lot. Is it expensive? This is a question that always came up.
Right. So it's going to increase your costs, the increase of your foundation, for sure. How much is going to depend on the size of your house, how bad your soil is,
Oh dear.
whether you can do what we call a board pile, BORED. You all go it out
Oh.
and put it in, or if it's going to be a driven pile. So there are
Many
various
factors.
permutations, yes, but it definitely will increase your costs.
Okay.
So how much for like a pile? One that has
It's so like you
cement?
want to back up somebody about the charge. Yeah.
She's checking her quotations, everybody. She's checking her quotations.
You know, we had to put in 24 board piles where they excavate this hole,
Yes,
stick these metal things down in it, and then pour the concrete.
right,
And they're in strategic spots to
Right.
hold up certain very heavy areas
Right.
of the house.
right,
Either the pool, so we had to put more there,
yes,
and we had to put more around the stairs
yes,
and certain areas.
right.
So I can't remember, but I think it worked out to be like maybe a 1,000 US a pile. Was that high? I can't remember. Truthfully, I can't remember. Can you
Yeah.
imagine?
Yeah.
David's like, don't.
Oh, no,
do
but
it.
like,
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not gonna hold it.
I think it was like
No, a
250.
1,000 US sounds high.
Mhm.
250 a pile.
There you go.
Because it was
That's
4 in the 1,000.
yes. Okay, that
It was
sounds
4
a
in
little
the
better.
1,000.
Yeah, and that would be total for boring, putting in the concrete and
Yeah,
the,
pouring and also putting in the what is
the
those?
rebar.
Yeah,
Yes,
the rebars.
yes, yes.
Okay, so we're talking about piles. We've run through that. A retaining wall. Now, you know, we live on an island, and we do have hills, of course. Our listeners here and abroad will have seen some of our mountain ranges and how homes seem to just sprout up out of them, you know, and it's just like, how can a house even go there? How is that even possible? A lot of them have these retaining walls. Often we see these retaining walls made out of cut stone. I mean, it can't be cheap. How much can a retaining wall really run you?
You know,
And is there a substitute for a retaining wall, like, you know, maybe a less expensive option?
no. So if you want to create a flat piece of land where you have a sloping, where the natural ground is sloping, then you are going to need a retaining wall.
No way around it.
I don't think there's anywhere, not that I know of.
Okay.
So the issue is, what is the retaining wall made of? As you said, there are different type of retaining walls. There's a gravity wall that you refer to, which is the cut stone wall. There are poured concrete walls that are just, you know, poured concrete. And there are gabion and baskets walls. Those tend to be cheaper.
Those are the ones
Those
that
by
like,
the
look like
sea,
the
right?
chicken measure the
There-
stone in
there
it.
you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
You see,
Yes.
like on the toll road,
There you go.
where you're worried it's gonna drop off and fall in front of your car.
Well, that's not that's not where I was going.
But that's it. I always look on them and go, "Wow, what is that?"
Right.
Yeah, a gabion basket.
A
Okay.
gabion basket wall.
Take notes, everybody. Take notes.
Right, right. And then there are various other permutations that you can get into, and different offshoots from that. The cost, and I'm not trying to evade the question, but the cost really varies with the height, the material that is being made of, because it's not linear. If you know, a 20-foot high wall is not going to be 10 foot. Is not going to be twice the cost of a 10-foot.
Oh,
wall.
it's not like that.
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
So it's
It depends.
it depends. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so that's a lot of information. So when a person is shopping for a lot, other than going with, you know, me, Rebecca, or Natalie to buy the lot,
Well,
or any other Coldwell Banker agent.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Other than going with your realtor, right? Who should you bring someone along? Like, should we ask you? Should the client ask you, or an architect? Like, who
Like,
decides
who
these
they,
things?
Who should they
Yeah.
bring along?
Yeah.
Other than the mother-in-law.
Right. And bring along before you buy the lot.
Yeah.
I would say bring the architect or the engineer. Well, bring the architect first. I always say bring the architect
Really?
because you may have in your mind that you have a particular vision. And I really find it useful that if you bring the architect can guide you as to say, well, I'm not sure if it can work. And then he may say, let me get an engineer to come along
Right.
and either agree with you or not. But I usually like to tell people start with the architect, and he can guide you whether it's possible what it is you want to do. It may be what you're thinking may be too big for the land. It doesn't work based on the position that it has to be. And, there are various things that go into it. And if he really thinks that there's an issue, he can then bring in an engineer, or you, the owner, can then say, let me follow it up with an engineer and see what they think about all the other things that we spoke about before.
Absolutely.
So, David, if someone has bought a piece of land like Natalie, and she's taken 11 years to start her construction, but that's okay. She sat on the piece of land and waited. But once you start your construction, you should pretty much go full speed ahead, right?
That's correct. Yes.
And because you don't want this, if you don't and you stop and start, it can cause cost overruns, right? Because the house can be sitting there dormant, like you see all those half-built, half-finished
but those
houses.
people are building as they earn. Is that what they call it? Building as they earn. But sometimes it goes horribly wrong.
Right. Well, what I would say is, hopefully Natalie sat on it for 11 years, because every day she looked at it, she made all the changes she wanted to make before she started construction.
And she was saving her pennies too, right?
And she was saving her pennies, that's right.
I mean, there was a particular reason why we started when we started. And it was more to do with where we were living, and at the time it was just fine.
Okay.
It wasn't anything about us sort of halting.
Okay.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I find is that some people, who are not in construction are scared of the construction process and the construction documentation. And so people say, I don't know how to read drawings, and it have to be built first before I see where the walls are going. That is how you have cost overruns. If the wall goes up, and that's when you realize that the bedroom is too small,
or you don't
like it there. It's easy to say knock it down, but the structures has to be changed,
and
the architecture changed, and that's where the cost overruns come in. Especially for houses, I find that people really need to take the time to read the drawings, and quite frankly, nowadays, architects have these programs that can have you walking through the
3D
house.
rendering, which is great.
All these renderings.
Which is what we're looking at right now, actually.
There you go.
We're looking at the rendering there.
So that, I think, really helps the person who is not in the business and doesn't know how to read drawings to get a feel for the space.
So important.
And these renderings, they can put the furniture in there, so you can get a feel for the furniture that is going in there. So that, I think, is one of the ways to avoid cost overruns.
And what about approvals? You say you're going to just start building this house, but obviously you need to get approval from the relevant government agencies.
Right.
How easy is this?
It's a pretty easy process, or I think it is anyway. You submit to the parish council. Depending on the size of the house, they may circulate it to the National Works Agency, or the fire brigade, or the NEPA. But you have to have a pretty big house for it to percolate up to NEPA and stuff like that. But you just submit to the parish council, and usually in about 2 to 3 months you should have your approvals.
Okay. An important question. I just have to ask you. Is there such a thing as a piece of land that is unbuildable? Can you just build anywhere?
Right. I had gone to a statutory agency once, and the government official told me that you engineers think you can build anywhere. But so there are some areas that are challenging, and it's usually in hillside areas that are on a clay that has a clay soil. Because then we need to be concerned about the land slipping and stuff like that. So there are, in my 30 years, I haven't come across too many lots of lands that are unbuildable. They're challenging, and the engineering solution may be too expensive for it to be worth it.
Prohibitive, yes.
But I haven't come across the unbuildable lot. And I mean, obviously, I'm taking out those lots that may be, right on the seaside or something like that.
Right.
But in general, most lots there, an engineering solution is just whether it makes sense to do it.
And I'd just like to interject that this is the man responsible for doing the sandals over the water suites.
Woo.
Which
Yes.
are in, they're two sets
There
now,
are two
right?
sets. Yes, we did both. We did the in White Sandals White House and Sandals Royal Caribbean. That was a great fun project to work
Great.
on.
I'm sure it really
Yes,
was.
it
It was like a
was.
dream come
It
true.
really was. It really was.
So it just goes to show he can build anywhere.
He can. It can be done. It can be done. Okay, question to Natalie now. Natalie, this is $1 million question now. In your wealth of experience, Natalie, how does one know if they have the personality to take on building a house?
Well, personality.
Personally, I don't think I could.
Well, and I think you can. I think that, I think first of all, you have to be creative. And I think that you also have to be wanting a particular type of house that's not available. And in Jamaica, we're young, I believe, in my opinion, in terms of our housing. There was only a few houses that were scheme houses, yes, to me, that and the demand that persons have for housing outstrips the supply. Again, in my opinion.
Yes, especially in Kingston and St. Andrew.
Exactly. So, and if you're creative and you want a specific type of house and you find a lovely piece of land, it is like you are creating this dream of yours. So I think that apart from being creative, I think you have to be patient as well, as I have been. And I think that you also have to have a bit of guts, yes, and confidence. But I think you also have to be humble. And so it's a bit of a paradox. You also have to be a little bit of a bully too. and why
Standing
I say
over
that,
the work, man, them.
well, no, because I think that the most
Or
important
arguing with your husband on
well,
what you
that's it.
actually want.
well, that's actually the hardest part.
I was going to say the dynamic in a marriage when building a
Oh,
house.
dear.
I don't know if everyone can do it.
Well, I think that it is challenging, but once you pretty much everybody gets their piece said, and you kind of work with professionals. Let me just
Yes.
put this out to you.
Absolutely.
I am not an architect, and I'm not an engineer, and I'm not a quantity surveyor, and I think that that's where people make the mistake.
Pay the professionals to do what
The
they
job.
do best.
Exactly.
please.
That's true.
Because we have enough fighting among ourselves, my husband and I, or whoever it is,
Right.
and the architect. So you pay all these people, and it can be seamless. And I think that the most important thing to do is to have the drawing done first, because you can change a drawing. I can write up something on a piece of paper, put the wall there, and rub it out with an eraser, right? No, you put up a wall and that's dollars. You're
Yes, that's
throwing
dollars.
away your money
Right.
when you have to knock out the wall because you never thought
Yeah.
about how
Right.
it was going to look.
So pay the architect to do the 3D renderings. Don't cheap out on that.
Don't cheap out that.
No.
Don't think you're an architect if you're not. Like I'm not.
Right.
I'm an accountant by profession first. I'm now a realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But I'm definitely not an architect, and I'm not an engineer, and I'm not a QS, and I'm not a contractor. So
That's
we
a lot
had,
of nuts.
but I am tenacious, and I am
Yes.
There
creative,
you
Right.
go. There you
Right.
and I can be a bully.
Yes.
And I can also be very humble
Right.
to recognize that I don't have those qualities, and therefore I prefer to purchase them.
I love that. Thank you, Natalie.
So I want to throw out a question to you, Madame. You sell a lot of land.
I do.
You do. You do.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that people need to look for when purchasing? Like, what are the most important things?
The most important thing is location. They need to look at the neighborhood. You know, what's happening in the neighborhood around them. They don't need to just jump at the property because it's a really great price. They need to do the
Research,
checklist.
yeah.
They need to do the checklist that we have gone through. They need to contact an engineer. They need to look at drainage. They need to look at sewage. They need to look at all of these things, because at the end of the day, something can really be too good to be true. I mean, I actually took an engineer to a piece of land. A client called me from Canada and said, "There's this piece of land. I'd like you to go and look at it." And I said, "Let me take an engineer." And he said, "Wow, what a great idea." So I called in a favor, right? And the engineer followed me up there and he looked at it and he said, Rebecca, no way. Tell your client this is not a good idea because water and it's just gonna
Yeah.
house going wash away.
And I guess it's one thing when you're sitting far away
Of
over
course,
the
I'm looking
internet
on
and you see
computer
something
and
for a
you see
really
this
good
thing
deal,
and you're
and
like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, it's $5 million and it has that view. There's a reason.
Especially
There's
with the view.
always a catch.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would say I sell all sorts of land. I've sold land up all across the country, really. But the thing I would say the number one thing is look at the location, right? And really think about it. Just think about it before you just dive in and buy this piece of land. Think about it.
Nats, anything more you want to add?
Well, I have to say that in terms of land, especially in Kingston and St. Andrew, I'm going to stick with our KSA here. It's finite and land is expensive. I mean, I think Kylie sold a property recently in Kingston 6 and it had a house on it. But still, if you
Which one
want to
was
make
that?
changes, the most recent one, I don't know if it's closed, so I won't mention it fully. But you're looking at a 3/4 acre for over $110 million. No, it has a structure on it, but it's probably not going to be what you want. So you're going to do a reno.
Yeah.
Now, if you think that it's expensive to build a house, it's also very expensive to do a renovation because you're coming across things, old electrical, old plumbing. You may not like the wall there, and at the end of the day, you end up knocking down the whole thing.
But then the land.
But then the neighborhood.
Can you replace that land? I mean, come on.
So it's irreplaceable.
You
So
buy
land
land.
is finite.
Yeah.
And so, I think that you get your dream with land, you get exactly what you want. And if we have a few more creatives around and land space, I think it makes the city prettier.
It does. It does. Well, thank you, Natalie.
You're welcome.
David, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been very enlightening for our listeners. I know you would have gotten so much out of it. If you would like to look at land listings, please go to our website, cbjamaica.com. If you would like to contact David Goldson, where can we find you, David?
Well, as we said, the name of the firm is Lyew Engineering. You can give us a call, 876-978-3780. Unfortunately, I don't have social media pages and all that. But,
we'll work on you, David.
Yeah,
we'll work on you.
I think we need to sort you
Yeah,
out.
we're going to sort you out. So do follow me on Instagram at rebecca.sellsrealestate.
And I'm Kylie the Realtor. That's Kaili the Realtor.
And I'm Marie Natty, Natty.
I just love having you on.
Yes.
Thanks again
I
for
think you'll be on
coming.
again, I'm sure. We'll
Thank
find a reason.
Well, maybe you'll bring me back when in the middle of my house.
There you go.
Oh, that's true.
And we
See
can
how
do
it's
an update
going.
show and we can be like, how's it going? This is a temperature
Take
check.
some video.
Oh, but by the way, before we go, ladies,
Yes.
what's our property of the week? Just tell our viewers.
Property of the week. Well, I have to feature a piece of land. So I have in the beautiful parish of Portland a fabulous piece of land for sale. It's been going on the loop.
Rebecca,
up there.
you're so organized.
Right?
You brought your land.
Yes, I did. I don't want to
listing.
forget anything.
Oh my goodness.
So
Under pressure.
this land now, okay, it's perfect for a villa or maybe a small resort. It's located in an area called Kensington, right? And the land is just past Long Bay. But before you get to Manchaniel, so it's on your way out of Portland towards St. Thomas, basically, just past the Cliffhanger Resort. Very good restaurant, by the way. And this land is 1.43 acres and it is pure white sand beach. Okay, it's beautiful. Flat, nice piece of land with a part of a river on it called Christmas River. Okay,
Wow.
and it's
What's the price
directly
on that?
on. It's priced at $550,000 US, but I think it's a winner because it is right on the A4 road, which is being improved, therefore shortening the traveling distance from Kingston to Portland. So I think it's a really great deal for a beachfront property.
Okay.
So that's me. And you?
Okay, well, I am working on a listing that's going to be a very good listing.
Okay, I love
I
these.
actually don't have it priced yet, but I kind of know where it's going to be priced, around the $300,000 range. I'm almost there. I have the paperwork. We're just tidying it all up.
So they're getting first dibs on this.
You're getting
What
first
is it?
dibs
What
on
is
it. So you're going to have to actually go to the website to check it out once it's listed. But you can kind of look out for it, either that or my Instagram page. It is going to be, it's on Boscobel, St. Mary, which is, 10 minutes from Otrias. It's on the sea. And it is a 1/4 acre, goes down to the sea. This will be an interesting one because it's on a cliff, but it's beachfront. So I'm working on it. So look out for it on my Instagram page.
Well, that looks
very
like
soon.
It's going to be a nice one.
Well, I did have a piece of land.
But you sold it.
But Kylie sold it. And it went up on the website. I don't even think it made it on the website. We had 15 offers. And it was in Kingston and St. Andrew.
Of course.
However,
and the day we sold it, the day we were showing it, I think 45 people came to look at it.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
crazy. We had to take them staggered out, obviously, but
so,
you know.
land is a good deal, but I do have a great development on Millsboro that I have been pushing. And
Tell me
there
about
is a
it.
2-bedroom ground floor unit. There are only 9 apartments in that development and 6 villas on 1.8 acres. And
Low density.
low density, it's the lowest density on Millsboro right now.
Exclusive.
$365,000 for the 2-bedroom apartment. It's a deal.
It's a deal.
That
Thank
sounds
you,
like a
Natalie.
deal. Thanks, Nat.
Thanks again, guys. It's been awesome. Until next time, everyone. Thank you for listening and watching.
Bye.
Bye.